I stand in the driveway, staring at the house I grew up in. It's up for sale again, and I can't shake the pull to come back. The open house is tonight, and here I am, 28 years old, parked in front of the place that haunted my childhood. The house looks worse than I remember. Peeling paint, sagging gutters, the deck half rotted. The kitchen windows glare down like eyes. The French door on the deck sits like a crooked nose, and the basement door at the base of the house gapes like a hungry mouth. My stomach twists, the same dread I felt as a kid washing over me. I shake it off. I'm not that scared little boy anymore. No cars are in the driveway, no signs, no realtor. Is this even an open house? The front door's unlocked though, so I step inside. The air hits me, heavy, thick, like it's been trapped in here for years. Dust floats in the dim light filtering through the curtains. The kitchen smells of mildew, and the living room's carpet is stained and worn. I move down the hallway, my footsteps echoing. The floor furnace is gone, thank God. I used to lie awake at night, terrified something from the basement would reach through those grates and grab me. To the right, where the furnace once was, is the basement door. That damn door. Old warped wood splintered at the edges with a rusty knob. I freeze. A chill crawls up my spine and I feel it. Something dark seeping through the cracks, pressing against me. I'm an adult now. This is ridiculous. I shouldn't be scared of a basement. But my hand shakes as I reach for the knob. I yank the ducker open and darkness spills out thick and endless. The stairs creak faintly, though nothing moves. My heart pounds. I can't stop myself. The words bubble up, the same ones I used to shout as a kid standing at the top of these stairs. I'm not afraid of you anymore, I say, my voice trembling. Come face me. The air shifts. A cold wave rushes over me, prickling my skin. I slam the door shut, cheeks burning. God, I'm an idiot. Yelling at a basement like I'm still 8. I turn to leave, ready to get the hell out of this house. I don't want it. Not anymore. Then I hear it. Footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, thudding, up the wooden stairs. My breath catches. They're getting faster, louder, shaking the floor. The door explodes open, splinters flying. It's him, the man my mother and I saw outside our windows all those years ago. His face is twisted, angry. His eyes pure black, like holes that swallow light. He's in old, tattered clothes, reeking of earth and something sour. He storms toward me, arm outstretched, fingers clawing the air. I stumble back, but he's too fast. His hand clamps around my neck, cold and impossibly strong. He lifts me off the ground, my feet dangling, his grip crushing my throat. I can't breathe. Those black eyes bore into me and I feel it. A hatred so deep it's like he's been waiting for me all these years. My vision blurs, darkness creeping, and I wake up gasping, drenched in sweat, tangled in my sheets, my bedroom, my apartment. My hand flies to my neck, half expecting bruises, but there's nothing. Just a dream. It was just a dream. But it felt so real. The house, the basement, him. My phone sits on the nightstand, the real estate listing still open from last night. The open house is today. I could still go. I should go. It's just a house, right? A rundown old place with bad memories. I'm not a kid anymore, I can face it. But as I stare at the photo of the house on my screen, those windows like eyes, that basement door like a mouth, I can't shake the feeling that it's waiting. For me, that it's always been waiting. 3 years ago, my little brother Ethan drowned at summer camp. He was 8. It was nighttime and he'd snuck away with some other boys to see the lake under the stars. They said he slipped on the dock. By the time they found him, it was too late. I was 13. I didn't go on that trip. I was home, playing video games. I remember getting the phone call, hearing my mom scream, my dad's voice cracking for the first time. We buried Ethan with his favorite photo, the one of him and me standing by the lake grinning like idiots. We haven't spoken about him since. His room stayed locked. Sometimes I thought I heard things from inside. Soft thuds, creaks, whispers. But I chalked it up to grief and silence. My parents stopped smiling. My mom started taking sleeping pills. My dad just stopped talking altogether. Last night at 3:12 a.m., I heard tapping on my bedroom window. We live on the second floor. At first, I thought it was the wind, but the tapping didn't stop. It was rhythmic, slow, careful. I turned over, annoyed, then froze. Outside the window in the moonlight stood Ethan. His face was pale. His lips were blue. His hair dripped water down his cheeks. He wore the same Spider-Man pajamas he used to sleep in, soaked through and clinging to his tiny body. He didn't look older. He looked exactly the same as the day we buried him. He didn't speak. He didn't smile. He just stared and tapped on the glass with one finger over and over. I screamed. My parents ran in and flipped the lights. Ethan was gone. The window was closed, locked from the inside. They told me it was a nightmare, but I know what I saw. This morning, the carpet near my window was wet. There were small footprints, the kind Ethan used to leave when he ran barefoot after swimming. My window lock was undone, and on the floor was the photo we buried with him. It was torn down the middle, soaked, and smelled like lake water. I tried to show my parents, but the footprints dried and the photo vanished. I thought I was losing my mind, until just now. It's 3:12 again. The tapping is back. But this time, the window is already open. I don't know what to do anymore. I don't want to believe it, but it's impossible to ignore. My heart races in my chest as I sit up in bed, my hands trembling. The tapping continues, slow and deliberate, just like before. It's maddening, the way it echoes in the dead of night. I get up, my feet moving instinctively toward the window, though every part of me is screaming to stay away. I reach for the handle and hesitate. I don't want to open it. I don't want to see him again, but I know I have no choice. With a shaky breath, I pull the window open. The cold air rushes in, and for a moment I wonder if this is real. Maybe I'm still dreaming. Maybe I'm just imagining all of this. But then I hear it, the sound of tiny wet footsteps on the ground below, soft like the padding of bare feet against the grass. I lean out the window trying to make sense of what's happening, my heart pounding in my ears. There he is. Ethan. He's standing on the lawn, his little face still pale, his clothes soaked through. His Spider-Man pajamas cling to his small frame, the fabric heavy with water. His hair hangs in wet strands around his face and his eyes are wide, unblinking, staring up at me. The tapping continues, his finger hitting the window with that same slow rhythm. I swallow hard, my throat tight. Ethan. The word comes out as a whisper, choked with emotion. I don't know what to say. How could I ever explain this? How could I tell anyone that my little brother is standing in front of me after being gone for 3 years? He doesn't move. He doesn't speak. He just keeps staring at me, tapping. Each tap seems to echo louder, like it's pounding into my skull. I take a step back, suddenly overwhelmed with fear and sadness. Please, my voice cracks. Please, Ethan, don't do this. Come inside. You're scaring me. For a moment, I think he might leave. His head tilts slightly like he's considering my words, but then he reaches up with both hands and places them against the glass. I gasp, feeling the cold from his touch seeping through the window, even though it's closed. He presses harder, as if trying to reach me, as if he's begging me to understand something I can't. The silence stretches on, and the air feels thick with something I can't describe, something dark and suffocating. Then, without warning, the image of Ethan starts to blur. His form flickers like a malfunctioning TV screen. For a split second, I see something else. Something darker. A shadow stretching out from him, swirling around his feet, crawling up his legs. And then, just as suddenly as it started, the tapping stops. I blink, and in that moment, Ethan is gone. My heart stops. I rush to the window, pushing it open further. But there's nothing. No wet footprints. No signs of him at all. Only the cold, empty night. I pull the window shut and turn to face my room, my hands shaking uncontrollably. What is happening to me? What's going on with Ethan? And why won't my parents believe me? I glance at my clock. It's 3:12 again. This time the room feels different, like the air is heavier. My eyes wander to the corner of my room where the dresser is. That's when I notice it. The photo, the one we buried with him. It's lying on the floor in front of me. It's soaked. And this time the photo is different. It's not the same one. It's a new one. A picture of me and Ethan standing by the lake, smiling. But this time, I'm holding his hand. And he's staring directly at the camera, his eyes wide with a strange, unsettling intensity. I'm not imagining this. I know I'm not. I try to move, but I feel a sharp cold on the back of my neck like fingers brushing against my skin. I turn around. There's a handprint on my bedroom door. It's wet and it's small. When I was a child, my grandmother gave me a doll. It wasn't just any doll, but an old porcelain one, delicate and worn with cracked paint and faded colors. At first glance, it looked like a simple antique, something that belonged more in a dusty attic than in a child's bedroom. My grandmother said it had been in our family for generations and that it was a precious keepsake, passed down from one relative to another. She told me stories about the doll's age, the old days when it was made, and how it had survived wars and time. To me, it was a mysterious treasure, something special to hold on to, a link to my family's past. I remember how the doll's porcelain skin felt cold and smooth in my hands, the fragile weight of it, and how its glass eyes seemed to catch the light in an eerie way. It sat on a small wooden chair in my room, always facing the doorway as if watching everything that happened. At first, I didn't think much of it. It was just a doll, after all. But as days passed, I started to feel an odd sensation whenever I looked at it. There was something unsettling about the way it sat so still, its delicate fingers curled just so, and the faint smile on its face which never quite reached its eyes. My grandmother's gift became a fixture in my room, and I treated it like any other toy. Sometimes I would play with it, creating stories and adventures, imagining it was a companion rather than an object. But even as a child, I noticed that the doll seemed different from the others. It didn't seem to belong in the world of cheerful toys and colorful playthings. There was a coldness to it, a quiet stillness that made me uneasy late at night. What puzzled me most was that despite the doll's age and fragility, it never seemed to get dirty or worn out. No matter how many times I touched it or moved it, its porcelain face remained flawless in some ways, but also strange. The paint on the cheeks seemed to shift subtly, and sometimes the shape of its eyes looked different when I wasn't directly watching. I would blink and look again, convinced I had imagined it. Yet the feeling that the doll was somehow alive, or at least aware, began to creep in. My grandmother never warned me about the doll beyond telling me it was precious and must be cared for carefully. She had a strange glint in her eye when she gave it to me, something I didn't understand at the time but now realize was a hidden warning. She seemed almost relieved to pass it on, as if the doll carried a burden she no longer wanted. Over the years, I found out that the doll had a long history in our family. Stories whispered about its strange influence on relatives, unexplained disappearances, and strange events. But back then, I only knew it as my grandmother's gift, something I was supposed to cherish. At night, when the house was quiet, I would sometimes catch glimpses of the doll in the corner of my eye, as if it moved just slightly when I wasn't looking. The expression on its face seemed to shift from calm to something else, something darker. It was subtle, almost impossible to describe, but unmistakable once noticed. I would shake my head, telling myself it was a trick of the light, or that my imagination was running wild in the dark. The doll's presence was both comforting and disturbing, a paradox I couldn't understand. It was like a guardian watching over me, but also a watcher waiting for something. I kept it close, even though a small part of me wanted to hide it away, lock it in a box, and forget it existed. The gift my grandmother gave me was more than just an old toy. It was a connection to something ancient and mysterious, a piece of my family's secret past that I had yet to fully uncover. As I grew older, I realized the doll's face was the key to its power, an ever-changing mask that held stories and emotions no one else could see. The porcelain mask was more than a mask. It was a window into something beyond the ordinary world, something that could reach into my dreams and my fears. The doll was not just a relic from the past, but a living presence in my life, waiting, watching, and changing in ways that no one else could understand. I noticed the doll's face kept changing expressions when I wasn't looking. It began with a small, almost imperceptible change. One evening, as I sat reading by the dim light of my bedside lamp, I glanced at the doll sitting quietly in its usual spot. I could have sworn the faint smile it wore was gone, replaced by something softer, almost sad. I rubbed my eyes and looked again. It was back to the smile. At first I thought I was imagining things. Perhaps the shifting shadows of the room played tricks on my eyes, but the feeling of unease didn't leave me. Over the next few days, I kept catching the doll's face altering when I wasn't paying attention. I'd look away briefly, and when I looked back, the expression was subtly different. Sometimes a slight frown, sometimes the hint of a smirk, other times a blank, almost sorrowful look. I became obsessed with trying to catch the doll's face, mid-change, but it always seemed to freeze again the moment I looked directly at it. This eerie phenomenon was more than just curiosity. It unsettled me deeply. The doll wasn't just an object. It seemed to have a consciousness, a will of its own. The porcelain face, once static and lifeless, now felt like a mask that could slide and shift, revealing fleeting emotions that no doll should ever have. I began to question my own sanity. Was it stress? Lack of sleep? Or was there something supernatural at play? I mentioned this to my closest friends, but they dismissed it as imagination or the classic creepy doll paranoia. Yet the feeling was real. There were nights when the doll's changing expressions kept me awake, eyes darting to that corner of the room. The way the shadows danced around it, the faint glint in its glass eyes, they gave me chills. One night, after a long day, I came home to find the doll's face completely different. Instead of the delicate features I remembered, its face looked angry, almost hateful. Its eyes seemed to burn with fury, piercing through the darkness like they were watching me, judging me. I froze in place, unable to move or breathe. A cold, sweat running down my back. I wanted to scream, to throw the doll away, but something rooted me to the spot. As days turned into weeks, the doll's face continued to change, unpredictably. It wasn't just expressions anymore. It was as if the doll wore different faces, each one telling a different story. Some faces looked human, while others were twisted and grotesque, as if the doll was a vessel for something darker lurking beneath the surface. The slow morphing of the face became a terrifying reminder that the doll wasn't just a toy, but something far more sinister. The most unsettling part was when the doll's face seemed to react to me. It mirrored my moods. When I was sad, its face looked mournful. When I was angry, it showed rage. It was as if the doll fed on my emotions, reflecting and amplifying them. I tried to ignore it, but the bond grew stronger with every passing day. This constant shifting made me question everything I believed about reality. How could an inanimate object have such power? Was it haunted? Cursed? Or was it some kind of supernatural guardian warning me of things I couldn't yet understand? I was trapped in a waking nightmare, watching the doll's face change with terrifying intent, powerless to stop it. I began documenting the changes, taking pictures and notes, trying to find a pattern or explanation. But the more I observed, the more confused and scared I became. The doll was alive in some unnatural way, and its ever-changing face was a language I was desperate to decode, even as it threatened my sanity. One night, everything changed in a way I could never have anticipated. I was asleep when I was suddenly jolted awake by a sound that chilled me to the core, a faint whisper, barely audible, coming from the corner of my room. At first, I thought I was dreaming, but as the seconds ticked by, I realized it was real. The whisper grew louder, forming into a word. My name. The doll, sitting quietly in its usual place, seemed to be the source. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. I turned on the light, the sudden brightness making me blink, but my eyes were drawn immediately to the doll's face. It had changed again, but this time the change was undeniable. The porcelain mask had shifted into something terrifyingly alive. Its glassy eyes were no longer empty. They glowed faintly, filled with rage and malice. The cold smile twisted into a sinister grin, revealing something cruel beneath the surface. I wanted to scream or run, but my body was frozen. The doll's mouth moved as if speaking to me, but the words were unintelligible, an eerie, guttural sound that filled the room like a dark chant. The air grew thick and heavy, and I could feel a presence in the room with me, something ancient and malevolent. It was as if the doll was no longer a mere object, but a vessel for something far more dangerous. The whispered voice called me closer, promising secrets and darkness I wasn't sure I wanted to know. I felt a mixture of terror and curiosity, a pull that I couldn't resist. I tried to tell myself it was a nightmare, a trick of my mind fueled by sleepless nights and stress. But the doll's face never returned to normal that night. It stayed twisted and alive, watching me with an intelligence that was impossible to ignore. I spent hours staring at it, feeling a silent conversation pass between us, something unspeakable and dark. From that night on, the doll's behavior became more aggressive. It wasn't just the changing faces or the whispered words anymore. It started moving on its own. I would wake up to find it in a different position, sometimes facing me directly, sometimes even on my bed. Doors creaked open, shadows flickered in the corners, and I felt eyes on me even when I was alone. The doll was no longer just an eerie curiosity. It was a threat. I confronted my grandmother about the doll, desperate for answers. Her face grew pale, and she looked away, hesitant to speak. Eventually, she confessed that the doll had been cursed, tied to a dark past filled with anger and pain. It was said to hold the spirit of a vengeful ancestor, trapped inside the porcelain shell, seeking release or revenge. She warned me never to anger it, never to disrespect it, but it was already too late. The doll's influence was spreading. I researched everything I could about cursed dolls, spirits, and hauntings, but nothing fully explained what I was experiencing. The doll was unique, alive in ways that defied logic and reason. I began to fear for my sanity and even my life. The whispering voice became a constant in my dreams and waking hours, a dark song I couldn't escape. The vision started gradually, like flickers of a dark film playing in my mind. At first, I thought they were just nightmares, echoes of the unsettling presence of the doll. But soon, the line between dreams and reality blurred. The doll didn't just change its face, it began to show me things, scenes that felt like windows into another world or another time. I would close my eyes and suddenly find myself walking through shadowy hallways, hearing whispered conversations that chilled me. The visions revealed a past I never knew about, dark secrets from my grandmother's life, hidden stories about betrayal, loss, and even death. The doll seemed to be a conduit, sharing memories trapped inside it, memories soaked in pain and suffering. Sometimes I saw figures, shadowy, twisted shapes lurking in the background of these visions. They moved silently, watching, waiting. I felt their cold presence press against me as if they were trying to reach out, to warn me or maybe to curse me. The more I saw, the more I realized these weren't just random images. They were connected to my family, to the very bloodline I came from. The doll's face would shift during these episodes, reflecting the horror and anguish of the scenes. Its eyes would darken, its smile fading into a grimace of agony. I felt like I was living through someone else's trauma, trapped in a nightmare that didn't belong to me but had been passed down through generations. One particular vision was burned into my mind, a cold, dimly lit room where my grandmother, younger and fierce, was standing over someone lying motionless on the floor. Her face was hard, her eyes full of rage and desperation. I could hear fragments of a fight, harsh words spoken in anger, and then a sudden, chilling silence. That image stayed with me, haunting my waking hours, and the doll's face twisted, in pain whenever I thought of it. These visions grew stronger, more vivid and harder to ignore. They invaded my dreams and seeped into my reality. I found myself afraid to close my eyes, terrified of what the doll might show me next. It was like the doll held the key to a family curse, a dark, tangled history of sorrow and violence that I was now part of. I tried to resist, to block the images, but they came relentlessly. The doll's power over me grew with every vision. I could feel it pulling me deeper into the darkness, threatening to consume me if I didn't unravel the secrets it revealed. It was no longer just an eerie presence in my room. It was a living nightmare that had become my reality. I knew I had to confront these shadows, to face the truth buried in those visions. But the doll seemed to sense my fear and resistance. Its face would change to something cruel and mocking, as if daring me to uncover what it hid. The line between protector and tormentor blurred. I was trapped in a web woven by that porcelain face, caught between the past and the present, between what was real and what was not. I knew I had to get rid of the doll. Its presence was suffocating, its power growing stronger every day. The constant shifting of its face, the whispers, the terrifying visions, it all became unbearable. I tried everything I could think of to rid myself of the cursed object, but nothing worked. Every attempt ended with the doll returning, as if it was bound to me by some unbreakable force. The first time I tried to throw it away, I took the doll to the trash bin behind our house. I remember the heavy weight in my chest as I let go of it, thinking I would never see it again. But the next morning, there it was, sitting on my bedroom chair as if it had never left. I thought maybe someone had played a cruel joke on me, but no one knew about the doll or its power except my closest friends, and none of them had come near my room. Next, I attempted something more drastic. I buried the doll deep in the garden under a thick layer of soil. I even said a prayer, hoping to trap whatever spirit was inside. Days passed and I felt relief, until one stormy night, when I woke up to a sharp, scratching sound coming from outside. I looked out the window and saw the doll, dirty and broken, lying on the porch steps, its face cracked but still somehow watching me. It was as if it had clawed its way back from the earth itself. Desperation drove me to try burning the doll. I lit a fire in the backyard and threw the doll into the flames, watching the porcelain crackle and blacken. But the fire never fully consumed it. When I checked the ashes the next day, I found fragments of the doll untouched by flame, and worse, its face was intact, smiling coldly up at me. It was as if the fire rejected the doll, refusing to destroy what it held within. After that, I tried locking it away in a box, sealing it with salt and protective charms I had read about in books. For a while, I thought the doll was contained, powerless. But every night I could hear faint tapping or scratching sounds coming from the box. Sometimes I would find the box open, the doll sitting outside it, waiting. The curse was relentless. It became clear that the doll was tethered to me, connected in a way I couldn't understand. No matter what I did, it would come back, each time with a face more twisted, more malevolent. The changes in its expressions grew more disturbing, reflecting a deeper darkness that was awakening. I realized I wasn't just dealing with a haunted toy. The doll was alive in some supernatural sense, a vessel for something ancient and evil. It was tied to my grandmother's past, to family secrets I had yet to uncover. The more I fought to escape it, the stronger its hold became. Friends and family started to notice changes in me, my anxiety, the exhaustion from sleepless nights, the haunted look in my eyes. They begged me to get rid of the doll, but I knew it wasn't that simple. It wasn't just an object, it was a curse. It had chosen me, or maybe I had inherited it along with the doll. Now I live with the doll constantly nearby, knowing that any attempt to abandon it would only bring it back worse than before. Its face keeps changing, a reminder of the evil It holds inside and the fate I might share. The curse is relentless, and I fear it will follow me until the end. The final and most terrifying realization came when I understood that the doll wasn't just changing its face. It was slowly taking over my own identity. It started with small things. People around me began noticing subtle shifts in my behavior. Friends said I seemed different, colder, more distant. My family noticed my expressions would sometimes mimic the doll's unsettling changes, sometimes a forced smile, sometimes a sudden grimace. I brushed it off as stress, but deep down, I knew something darker was happening. At night, I began to feel a presence inside me, as if the doll's spirit was invading my mind, whispering in the darkest corners of my thoughts. I would wake up confused, unsure if the feelings and emotions I was experiencing were truly my own, or planted there by the doll. It was as if the porcelain mask was not just an external shell, but a parasite, slowly erasing who I was. One evening, after a long day, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. For a moment, my reflection didn't look like me. The features were subtly wrong. The eyes sharper, the smile twisted in a way that mirrored the doll's sinister grin. I recoiled, in horror, afraid to look again. The doll was invading me, stealing pieces of my soul and replacing them with something cold and unfeeling. I tried to fight it, to hold on to my sense of self, but the more I resisted, the stronger the doll's influence became. It was a battle. I could not win on my own. The doll seemed to feed on my fear, growing more alive with each flicker of my doubt. The lines between me and the doll blurred, and I could no longer tell where I ended and it began. I reached out for help. Paranormal experts, psychics, even therapists, but none could explain or fix what was happening. The doll's curse was unique, tied not just to its physical form but to a dark energy that attached itself to me in a way that defied all logic. It was a haunting that was both physical and spiritual. The doll's face kept changing, reflecting the transformation inside me. Sometimes it looked angry and vengeful, other times sorrowful and mournful. It was like the doll's personality was merging with mine, a terrifying fusion of porcelain and flesh. I feared that soon I would lose myself completely, becoming just another face on that porcelain mask. Living like this is exhausting and lonely. I can't share this with many people, for fear they won't believe me or worse, think I'm insane. But the truth is, I'm trapped in a nightmare where the doll controls my reality. It haunts my dreams, follows me in waking life, and slowly erases the person I used to be. I don't know what the future holds, or if I can ever break free from this curse. The doll is more than an heirloom. It's a living nightmare, a dark shadow that grows stronger every day. And as its face changes, so too does the fate that awaits me, bound forever to the porcelain mask that keeps shifting, changing, and consuming.